All right, welcome everyone to the first edition of the IMAGIN Webinar Series. Thomas Van Bruggen with Muskegon County GIS and the IMAGIN president, and I want to just take a brief moment to welcome you all to our webinar series. Obviously, COVID has thrown all of us a big curveball this year, and we were not fortunate enough to be able to have our June conference. But in working with many of our presenters that were going to be presenting at the conference, many of them said, yeah, we'd love to still present what we were going to go through. So we've worked it out and we've gotten a web platform that you're all joining us on today. And so I want to welcome you to the IMAGIN Webinar Series that starts today and it'll be about every 2 weeks. We'll skip a week here and there for holidays that are coming up. But we're going to go all the way, hopefully, to just before June, where hopefully we'll be able to be meeting in person up at Mackinac Island for our next in-person conference. Obviously, that situation changes daily, so we'll stay in touch with that. But thank you and welcome to our webinar today. I want to just point out a couple of housekeeping items. The meeting is being recorded. We have about 5 presenters and moderators online that are watching the chat and questions panel. So if you have a chat or question, go ahead and type that in. Our webinar series is also out on our website at imagine.org, and right now I think we have webinars lined up for sure all the way through February. So with that, take a look at which ones are out there, and we're just excited to be able to connect with you, and we'd love your feedback too. So there will be follow-up emails for surveys and things like that after that, just to get your feedback. So with that, I am going to go ahead and introduce our presenters today. We have Becky Gajewski and Tony Bedogne, both from the City of Ann Arbor, and they are going to be presenting on the study of a big word that I don't even want to say, but also the use of Survey 123 in the analysis of, let's see if I can say it right, the analysis of Herpetofauna in the City of Ann Arbor. Hopefully I got that close. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Becky and Tony.
Great, thanks very much. Thanks to everybody who tuned in today. I'm gonna get my screen sharing up here. Okay. Hopefully y'all can see my screen. Great. All right, so thanks again. My name is Becky Gajewski. I'm a stewardship specialist at the City of Ann Arbor. I work within the Parks and Rec Department in a program called Natural Area Preservation. And with me today is Tony Bedogne, a senior application specialist in our IT department. And we're going to talk to you about how we used Survey 123 to expand the analysis of our Herpetofauna survey program. So this is just a little bit of an outline of what we're going to talk about. I'll explain a bit about who or what is natural area preservation and what we do, and why we have these survey programs that we have. Some issues that we had with the old-fashioned way of doing surveys using paper, and how we used Survey 123 to help us solve those problems. Tony is going to jump on and do some demos of how to submit data with our app and how to build surveys in Survey 123. And then I'll jump back up and I'll do a little data visualization demo. And we'll pause for questions throughout the presentation. So what is natural area preservation? As I mentioned, we're part of the City of Ann Arbor's Parks and Rec Department, and we're funded by a voter-approved parks maintenance and capital improvements millage. So pretty cool that the voters have always decided to tax themselves to keep our program running. We were created in 1993, and our mission is to protect and restore Ann Arbor's natural areas and to foster an environmental ethic among its citizens. So we're working in the natural areas of Ann Arbor's parks, in the woods and the prairies, doing ecological restoration work. And I'll talk a little bit about what all of that means. We're divided into 3 main areas. We have our outreach team who does all of our social media, and we have a newsletter, and they're communicating with volunteers who want to come and do work with us. We have our field crew, who are the folks that are on the ground doing the get your hands dirty restoration type work. Today they're doing a prescribed burn, but they also do trail maintenance and invasive species control, seed collecting, all sorts of fun things like that. And then we have our inventory team, which is the team that I am in charge of. And what exactly are we inventorying? Well, we're out in our parks making lists of all the plants, birds, frogs, toads, salamanders, butterflies, everything that we can find that's living and growing in our parks. We're also monitoring change over time through a photo monitoring program where you go to the exact same point and take pictures throughout the year or from year to year to see how the habitats are changing if our programs are being successful. And the people who complete the inventories are staff members at NAP. I oversee a couple of field biologists, and then there's another stewardship specialist besides myself. We also occasionally hire contractors, and we do actually a lot of work with volunteers. So we have big groups of folks who go out looking for salamanders or frogs or whatever sorts of animal they're interested in. And why are we doing this inventorying? Well, we're still getting new park land occasionally, so we always want to get out and get a baseline condition of what's going on in new sites. What's living there? Is there any rare species that we should be protecting? Anything threatened or endangered? We also want to make sure that we're characterizing the quality of the habitats we have, because we use this sort of quality ranking to determine where we're going to be doing our restoration work. So if we have a park that has a lot of rare, cool bird species, we'll target our restoration work to try to enhance those populations. We're also documenting impacts of the work itself. Are those populations getting bigger? Are they getting smaller? Are we having positive or negative effects on our habitats in the city? But maybe one of the biggest things that we use that we do with this data is we want to inform our future land management actions. So for example, like I said, today we're doing a prescribed burn. We also do prescribed burns in the spring. So we have volunteers that are out looking for salamanders. When salamanders are out migrating and they're moving from their places where they've hibernated over the winter into the vernal pools in the woods to start breeding, we don't want to do a prescribed burn while they're moving around. Or if we have a species that is particularly needs like a shrubby habitat, maybe we won't do as much invasive removals in those areas. So to get into it a little bit farther, one of our biggest survey programs are our reptile and amphibian surveys, or Herpetofauna, or Herps for short. So you'll probably hear me say the word Herps a lot, and by that I mean reptiles and amphibians. We have these 3 different surveys that volunteers and staff do. We have a frog and toad survey, where volunteers go to set points throughout our parks and they listen for frog calls and they record the species they hear and how much calling there is. We have a salamander survey where, as I mentioned, folks kind of monitor around the vernal pools where they breed to see when they're going out and migrating, and just to see, are they breeding? Is there evidence of breeding? And outside of the breeding season, they're out turning over logs and rocks and looking for different species in the parks. And thirdly, we have a turtle stewards program. And those folks are out looking for turtles basking on the river and in different ponds in our parks. And they're looking for nesting activity as well. Nests in urban areas are often predated almost immediately by raccoons and skunks. So we try to find them as much as we can and protect them where we can. But also our volunteers are just really enthusiastic. So they kind of do a little bit of everything, and they like to report what they see wherever and whenever they are, no matter if it's part of the actual survey or not. So this problem we were having was with paper, too much paper. Our volunteers since the mid-90s had been using paper forms to fill out what they were seeing and paper maps to record where did they see that thing. And it was always a big mess at the end of the year. They had to keep track of those paper forms and then either mail them or scan them over or take pictures and send them to us. And then we had to organize everything and take all of the data from those forms and put it into an Access database that we use to keep track of all of our observations. Then we would take the data from Access and export it to a geodatabase feature class and map the points by hand based on the paper maps that people were sending us. And then we still had to calculate the number of hours that they volunteered, put that into a whole nother database. And it was just really time consuming and frustrating. And every year forms would get mixed up and lost, and you have to keep bugging people to send in their data forms. And we just figured there's got to be a better way to do this. So just as an example, this is what our salamander survey form looks like. And when people would see this for the first time, their eyes would kind of cross. Lots of rows and columns and different species in a different column, and then different rows for how many adults or juveniles or eggs of a certain species did you see. But even worse was our general sort of herp survey form. Even more people's eyes would cross and they'd get a little scared when they saw this during our trainings. So there's always a little bit of confusion that we would have to sort out at the beginning of the year. So we just thought we can probably streamline this somehow. Again, here's what a map would look like for folks to mark where did they see a certain thing. And some people are better with maps than others. Some people can say, yep, I know I was exactly right here, and other folks would just be kind of struggle with it. So this was also kind of a clunkier way to do things. And by having people just draw on these maps that we would send them, they had a little bit less freedom to report things that they saw outside of their assigned parks, unless they wanted to make their own map and send it to us, which sometimes people do, but sometimes folks just don't want to bother with that. So we thought we've got to be able to use technology to help us out here. There are a lot of free apps that are already out there for recording wildlife sightings and plant sightings. For example, we have bird survey volunteers who use an app called eBird. And we have lots of volunteers and just regular park visitors who report sightings with iNaturalist, if you've ever heard of that. That can take plants and animals and any sort of thing that you see. For Herp specifically, there are a couple of apps called the Michigan Herp Atlas is one that's sort of the official state database of herp sightings. There's another app called Herp Mapper. And there are also options for online databases. We have butterfly volunteers who use an online database called Pollard Base. There's also a website called the Universal FQA Calculator that holds plant survey information. So there was all kinds of stuff out there that we thought maybe we can use one of these different things that are already there. It would be easier for volunteers to submit their data immediately, less time consuming for us because we wouldn't have to transfer the data from paper sheets into a database. We could get automatic reports out of a lot of these things. And for databases like iNaturalist or eBird or the Michigan Herp Atlas, these are going into either worldwide or statewide databases, and anyone can contribute. The data is available for research and all kinds of good stuff like that. So we looked into a lot of these, but unfortunately, none of the apps that are currently available could capture the level of detail that we would like to get from our surveys. And we also found that getting the data back out again might be a problem if we wanted to put it into our own GIS and do some analysis with it. We might not be able to get all of the information that the volunteers submit, and it was just a little bit messy. So we thought Survey 123 might be a solution for this. We figured the spatial part of our data is the most important, so can we just use GIS to input all of this information and get rid of paper and get rid of access and just have everything right there in GIS? And can we figure out a way for volunteers to submit their own data? That way, at the end of the year, there's less burden on our staff to have to translate things for them. So looking at Survey 123, we thought this could be great. It's a tool for building smart data collection forms, and it's all stored in ArcGIS Online, which is cool. And the forms have the ability to record geographic points, lines, and polygons. So that's exactly what we wanted, was something to record points. And if your organization has an ArcGIS Online account, you also have Survey 123. So it was something we already had. We didn't need to go out and get it special. The app with which you fill out the survey is free, so that was also a good selling point, and it is available on mobile devices and on computers. So in order to build a survey, there's two different ways you can go about it. You can build a survey through the web, which is sort of like a what you see is what you get. I want to do a multiple choice question here, I want to do a text box here, and it's pretty simple and straightforward and easy to use. There's also a program called Survey 123 Connect, which is what we ended up using because it offers a lot more functionality and customization options for your survey. For example, we wanted to have some nested questions, or to have a question where if a volunteer answered a certain answer, then they would get a different set of questions depending on what answer they picked initially. And we also wanted to be able to repeat survey questions. So if folks go out and do a survey, they capture sort of high-level information about the survey, their names, the weather, what time they started, and then all of their individual observations are nested underneath that survey. And we wanted to have it so that they could submit more than one observation within one survey. So Survey 123 Connect allowed us to do that, and Tony's going to show exactly what that looks like. All right, so I'm going to throw it over to Tony so he can do the demo here. Yes.
Yeah, I'll jump and do our demo in just a minute. So It looks like we had a question or two come in, and one participant's asking how many volunteers are involved in NAP and specifically the Herp program?
Sure. So for NAP total, in a non-COVID year, we usually have about 2,000 unique volunteers. That's because we do big, giant volunteer events with a lot of the Ann Arbor schools. So we'll get like one volunteer event with 400 people at it. The Herp survey program specifically usually has about 50 to 70 volunteers every year, I would say. Some do all 3 surveys, some just do salamanders, some just do turtles. So we get some good participation. They're all enthusiastic, so they send us lots of data.
Good.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, thanks for answering that.
Sure.
So if you have more questions, go ahead and type them in the chat and we'll get to them. We'll have another Q&A part coming up here shortly. So let me show a little bit about, thanks Becky for your intro. We'll hear from Becky again in a few moments.
Great. All right.
Okay, so do we have a screen up? Yes, okay. So I'm gonna go through the use of our survey, but also Survey 123 Connect specifically. Like Becky spoke about, the decision logic is really stored in this Excel file, and we're gonna get into the details of how that works. But let's show our survey. What Becky described with the nested questions, really in GIS terms, what it is, it's a relationship class. It's one feature class that connects or collects the generic information about the survey, the time of day, who you are, how many hours you were out surveying, and then the related table, the second feature class, is the individual X and Y coordinate of the animals themselves as they're inventoried. So a lot of this Herp surveying happens at night. So think about being out with a headlamp at a park, and you begin your survey and you walk around all night, and unfortunately you don't see any animals that night, but you spent several hours, 2 hours looking and doing the research for us. So we do want to capture that detail. Of course, as you're out, you're going to run into animals, hopefully, and every time you see a sighting, you have the opportunity to react and take a new point, which is that relationship. So I'll show how the relationship class is set up in the Excel form in a minute, but what's wonderful about this solution is to the end user, they don't know all this GIS configuration. So I'm just going to run through a survey. So if I was going out, I would put in my day and time of when I start. Run number means the amount of efforts you do in one survey initiative. So you might run through this trail and then go back to your car and then run through another trail. So it could be your second run. Usually it's first run. So you got your start time. We ask for the temperature, which today it's halfway decent. We ask you about the weather. Looks like it's clear where I am at anyway. And then what type of survey are you doing? So are you walking on a trail, or are you kind of off the trail? So you got to categorize the style of survey. So here is where the nesting or the relationship class option begins. So you'll see how the decision logic works in Survey 123 Connect, but if I was out all night and I didn't run into any animals, I would click this and then I don't have the map component and I kind of just finish off my survey. However, if I do run into my animal, this happens to be our nap office. That's our default location we chose. But if I have this on my phone, I can use my GPS and it'll find exactly where I am. But we're just going to digitize location, and there's the coordinate. And now it begins to ask me questions specific to this observation of an animal. I've now jumped down into my observations feature class, which is the second feature class. I have the XY coordinate. So now I talk about my level of certainty. So I see it right here, it's exact. Here is some other decision logic. So there's 6 options. So did you actually see the animal and turn it over, or saw it basking in the sun, or did you just hear it, which is typical for frogs? So what you'll see here is if I do pick that I heard it, it's going to ask you another set of questions about the calling, and then it's going to default your animal type to a frog, right? But in this case, let's say I found a salamander. So I saw one basking, and so I picked my salamander, and then I have an option for specific salamander species. If I saw a turtle, I'm going to have options for specific turtle species. The other functionality with this is typically with salamanders, you may find egg masses, juveniles, and adults, but with turtles, you're often not going to see egg masses, and because this was a required field in a previous form, we're just going ahead and hiding the egg mass question when turtles selected. So my original plan was to investigate a salamander. So I found the red spotted newt, and I didn't see any egg masses, and I saw 2 juveniles and 1 adult. And I wasn't sure of the gender, and if I wanted extra notes, I had them. Again, I can add photos or audio, so I can record the sound or I can take a picture. This again is yet another relationship class because you can associate many photos with this single observation. And I can move on to my merry way. And if I continue my investigation, I clear the form and I can start all over. And I can start with my next set of questions, which may be this one. Now I'm just within the park, and this time I heard calling, and there was a few, and I know it's a frog, and I'm not sure what type of frog it was, and I don't know the gender because it was a herd calling observation, and so on and so forth. When I'm done for the evening or effort of all my survey, I go back into the first feature class and answer some general questions about the survey, you know, and then I can put my end time. And this is very important because this helps us calculate the hours. So once I submit this, it's writing those photographs, those audio bits, the nested feature class, and the parent feature class all right now. Just happened. Okay. So all this lives in ArcGIS Online. And so let me show a little bit about Survey 123 Connect. So this was our form. So this is a piece of middleware that's also free, and you sign into your ArcGIS Online account, and this is where you do the design of the survey. So I'm going to build a new survey really quickly. So Imagine Live, and we are going to use the pre-built spreadsheet for this demo that I already have with the rules. There are some templates on Esri.com, and the user community for this is relatively strong. And that's how we started, was with one of the templates, and we evolved it. So I gotta remember where all this is. So when you install Survey 123 Connect, in your user profile, there's an ArcGIS folder, and then this My Survey Design folder will create. So I'm gonna start with this template. And what you're seeing is when I'm creating the survey, what it'll actually do, let's let this finish, is right on my local PC, it actually makes a folder to store all the content for this specific survey. So this is kind of a staging area. You build and modify your survey, and then you go ahead and load it up into the cloud, all with Survey 123 Connect. So went ahead and opened up our spreadsheet. Here you're going to see our choices that I was working with. We've subcategorized frog, and here's the species of frog. And I forgot to say this at the beginning. So I'm an application developer, but what I love about this application is there's virtually no code. Becky did 95% of the configurations for us with this application, and I just helped when the Esri technology wasn't behaving. So what's really nice about this type of thing is that You don't have to put any code together. All you have to do is build a couple business rules, and there's a fair amount of documentation on this. So I'm going to walk through our survey relatively quickly. So again, here's the general information. It's talking about, here's the heading and your name. Here's the field name as far as ArcGIS is concerned. Here's the label. And then these type parameters allow you to act with either a pull-down menu or a pick list or whatnot. So as we're going through the original questions, here is my begin repeat item. So when I use this item, that's when ArcGIS Survey 123 knows to enter into the new feature class. So here's my repeat beginning, and here's my individual observations. That's the name of the feature class we decided to use for the individual animals. So it's going to ask me a few simple more questions. Location of certainty, you saw that one. This survey method was that 1 through 6. Did I pick herd calling, or did I pick one of the other ones? Again, there's my choices. Oh, here's our choices right here. So if I pick 6, I get a little bit different behavior. So let me show you where that is. So here we go. If they pick 6, show the calling code parameters. If they and default it to the frog, if they pick 6, is what this is telling me. Otherwise, let the user choose it. And the next thing is the species organism type. This all comes from our choices box. So this is the species field. And let's keep walking through this. And then other species, this was just a type ahead, text box. Then there was a count for number of egg masses. So again, here's that logic. If they pick frog or salamander in any of the survey methods, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, so not 6, keep the egg mass option. But if they picked any of the organism types in 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, keep the juveniles or keep the adults. Because with herd calling, which is option 6, we're not going to have egg masses, juveniles, or adults. And then again, no logic here, the gender. And because I'm using a pick list, Survey 123 Connect prefixes you with this select 1 underscore option. That's all defined on this types tab that comes with your template. And so again, just to remind you, go over to the choices, find our gender group, male, female, unknown. If I want to add more options, this is where I do that. And we'll do that in just a second. Photo, audio, and then here's my end repeat. So if I don't continue, if I want to continue, I click the plus to add another, but if not, my repeat ends and then I wrap up my survey. All right, so really quickly, I'm just going to show you how we can update this form. So if I wanted to add another setting in here, I can put in something like, so crummy Michigan weather. I can just put that in the value, and I'm going to go ahead and save this spreadsheet. You're going to see Survey 123 is going to recognize that, and then it gives me an option to take a look at the survey, and there's my new value, my crummy Michigan. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and publish this survey now that I've modernized it to ArcGIS Online. So right now, because I built one from scratch from the beginning, it's actually publishing a brand new related feature class, 2 feature classes. It's building a web map for us, and it's building this form logic and putting it up into Arc Online account. If I was working with an existing feature class, because we already have one in production with thousands of points in it, you can get into your form and go to the settings, and you can put the REST URL of your existing feature class. As long as your schema is the same or very similar, it'll match up. Okay, so what happened is, here's my content, very organized like the rest of the IMAGIN base. We always organize our ArcGIS Online content. That's supposed to be a joke. So there's my IMAGIN Live folder. It actually builds a folder for you. And then there's our new feature class. Here's the web map. And then here's the form, which looks basically just like my other form. And I'm going to go ahead and open this in Survey 123. I'll show you how to add the logo in here. But if I go down here, there's my new option, crummy Michigan weather. Okay. And before I end my demo, inside of this staging folder, This is where it allows you to add some additional video or audio functionality. So the way this one's built, as long as you drop a JPEG or a PNG in this media folder before you publish. So Becky had our NAP logo as one of the headers. It's not opening, but you can see the graphic right here. If I go ahead and copy and paste this in my staging directory in this media folder and paste that here, when I run my publish option, it's gonna load that thumbnail into the cloud and then the logo would come through. So I've seen other organizations do that with video clips and stuff. Sometimes you want to have like a little header. So there, just finished that. And I'll end here. If I go ahead and refresh my ArcGIS Online survey, there you go. There's our logo. And I will go to one last thing I'll share with the group is this content is managed just like any other ArcGIS Online content. So here's my sharing. So I share this appropriately with a group or the public, or keep it private, however you want to do. All the standard ArcGIS Online sharing options are available to you. So that is it for the demo. Let's see if we had any questions. Your volunteers internal devices, or they connect with an external. So they just use the GPS or the location on their phone. You could partner a stronger GPS with your device. You know, the level of detail we're after here doesn't warrant that. But keep typing questions in, and I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to Becky, and she's going to show you the analysis, what we do with this data. All right, I gave the screen to you, Becky.
Okay, let me get that going here. All right, hopefully you all can see this map. So this is basically the sort of live results of people submitting data to us. We put a filter in this map so that points that were submitted inside of a park are green and points that are outside of a park are red. We were going to use it as a way to maybe catch people who are accidentally putting points in places where they shouldn't, but as you can see, a lot of folks like to survey on the river, and the park boundaries don't go into the river, so we get a lot of outside of the park points, even though they're near a park or, you know, along the river. So as Tony was mentioning, zoom in a bit here. This the survey gives us two feature layers. One, the red and green points are the individual observations of things that people saw. So that's those turning on and off. And then the yellow points are that higher level survey information about the weather and who did the survey. And the geographic location of those isn't really important. When somebody starts up a survey, it'll take a point where they are when they open up the survey. So oftentimes you see points at people's houses because they open up the survey at their house before they go into the park and start recording their observations. We did find that to be a bit, or their car, yeah. We did find that to be a bit of a tricky thing, because we were noticing that in addition, when you first open up the survey, the very first observation will also have the coordinates of where you were when you opened up the survey. So if people weren't paying attention, the first time they saw something and they went to go put it in, and if they didn't pay attention to where the map was showing them as being, they would put their first frog observation at their house or in the parking lot or something like that. So we just had to make sure to tell people, make sure you update your location, make sure you check your map and that your location is accurate before you submit your observations. So if I click on any of the yellow points, I can get information about a higher level survey. So Trisha went out on July 4th and did a survey for us. Great. Apparently she didn't see anything. She was looking for turtles, but didn't find anything. So that's too bad. Let's try another one here. Oh, another person who didn't see anything. Oh, come on. You gotta get one at least. All right, great. So this person did see a snake that was dead. That's also sad, but still good data. And I can click in here and click show related records. And I can see everything that she saw on her survey. So she saw a snake, but she also saw a salamander, and there's the numbers of ones that she saw. She can give more detail about, oh, she saw a lot of stuff. More detail about the individual observations, and then if she took any pictures or any audio clips, I can click on this show. Whoops, I'm sorry. Oh, now I can't get that to go away. All right, sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that. I'm just going to do this a different way. If I click on any of these individual observation points, I can scroll down within the observations layer. I can see whatever attachments people put on there. So this person saw a spotted salamander right there. Pretty cool. What else have we got? This one's a good one. This person saw a bunch of turtles basking, 18 adults and 10 juveniles. That's pretty exciting. Let's check out the picture. And so there we can see, we can also use these photos as confirmation of what people saw. So if they say this happens often, people think they find frog eggs or salamander eggs, and they turn out to be some other sort of animal egg. So if they send in a picture, then we can tell, oh, that's not really a salamander egg. We can delete that data point. Whoops, click out of there. So yeah, last I checked, which was a little bit ago, we've had over 1,000 observations submitted so far, just for this year, which is pretty amazing. We just rolled this out in March, I think people started using it. So I'm sure it's even more since then, although it is winding down for the year.
So our survey, our volunteers go through a training program with Becky. And so yes, we've determined it's best for us to kind of teach them, number one, about how to use Survey 1 through 3, but really more about what the mission of the program is and when to do it and why to do it. So they go through a small training program with Becky, and then there's a group we have this survey shared with, and we give them access. So that way we can kind of manage who is logging in and who's doing what. And so that's something we've had to navigate through with Survey 1 through 3, but we find it valuable.
Right.
I didn't mean to jump you off track. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's totally fine. That was pretty much all I was going to show with the map.
So show everybody how we get the park name and the volunteer hours. Is that something you wanted to?
Yes, I did want to show that. I just have too many windows in the way of each other, and I had to. Sorry, bear with me one sec. All right,
if you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat.
So let me go back into one of these. Oh, that's a staff member. That's not the best example. Hang on. Okay. So Tony mentioned that having the start time and the end time were really important for us because we wanted to capture the effort that that our volunteers are putting into this program. So we've asked people to self-report their hours in the past, and that doesn't always happen. We've always had to bother people to send us in their hours reports. So if we make the start time and end time mandatory fields within the survey, then we've built a model to automatically calculate the number of hours that survey took. So we can record 0.67 hours worth of effort for Julie. And we've got the date and we know what she was doing. So that all goes into our separate volunteer management system. There is still a little bit of having to transfer data from one system to another, but not nearly as bad as it used to be. We also have built a model to calculate the name of the park where points are placed. So if a point falls within a boundary of one of the parks, which are these black boundaries on the map, then this field will automatically be populated with the name of the park, which is pretty great.
And that helps change the symbology in the staff web map here from green to red.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes when we're putting together reports, we put together reports of effort by park. So this park has had so many hours of volunteer effort put into it. And that's why we wanted to capture the park name within the data itself.
without making the customer enter that for us, because they
Right.
might not even realize they're within the park boundary, or they might not know the name of the park. So this is all automated on the back end, which Becky's going
Right.
to show. At least
And
a slide.
oftentimes, I'm sorry, Tony. Oftentimes people just want to tell us that they saw something cool and not necessarily have it be in a park. So I'm trying to, so like some of these points over here are not in a park. So if we had a park name field in there, they wouldn't be able to fill it out anyway. That's another reason why we did the automation. So like click back over to here. So this is the model that we built to do those auto calculations. And I'm just going to jump back for a sec. One of the great things about Survey 123 is that when all of our data goes up into ArcGIS Online, we can access it directly via desktop or pro. We don't need to export it into another layer that we then have to manage and make sure we keep updated year after year. So that's been really great. Yep, so there's our model that adds the hours and the park names. And some of the things that we're working on for next steps is we'd like to create a custom base map for the app. You saw in Tony's example that right now it's that topo map, and there's kind of a limited number of options that you can pick for a base map. Base maps that Esri already has, then we have some of our organizational base maps, but we like to be able to have a map that's specific to what these volunteers need. So things that they might need are park boundaries and trails and streams and lakes and an aerial photo. So we're working on making a custom base map for that. And then we would like to also use Survey 123 to do a frog call survey app. That survey is structured differently than this survey. It's only for recording frog calls at specific points, like I mentioned. So we wouldn't be able to integrate it into this app, this survey. We would have to make it its own separate thing. So that's something we're going to be working on over the winter. And that is all that I have for y'all.
Well, we have a couple questions that have come in, so
Yeah,
we'll
happy to take
address,
questions.
and this is a great time to type more questions. So one of the questions is, have we used Survey 123 in other ways in other departments? So yes, I would say Becky's rollout in NAP is one of the more successful implementations, but we have used it in our planning services unit. There's a Survey 123 that was also built with Connect that does historic structure investigations. So there's some users that are using it for that. I have other people from my team on the call, and they're probably going to kill me if I don't name their app, but that's the one that comes to mind right now. But we have some ideas of how we might use it again in other areas. So good question. Another question is, if Survey 123 is run through AGO on a mobile device, how do you address locations where people don't have self-service? So that's a really good question. So that's part of what we teach in the training. So what I showed was the web version of Survey 123, which requires you to open with a browser and you got to have internet, right? And cell. But there is Survey 123 app, which if it's installed locally on your iOS or Android device, you can download and take the survey offline, so to speak, and you don't need cell phone signal. And your GPS works, believe it or not. I'm sure all of you have tried this on your phone, even without cell phone signal. So what you can do is you can submit the survey without being connected to the internet, and it stores locally on the phone in the app. And then when you come back into an area where you have cell phone signal, you sync that survey up into our environment. And so that's been really successful. And so another question, so hopefully that answers that question. Another question, now that you've set up Survey 123 for this purpose, did you plant some ideas for colleagues in your department? So did it kind of get the people at NAP, I think is what the question, moving?
Yeah, within NAP is very small, so I'm sort of the one who does all of the GIS implementation for us, so I've had more ideas. We haven't had others from other NAP staff yet, so the frog call survey is sort of the next one on the plate. We've also talked about using it for plant surveys. So yeah, I think we're gonna keep using it. It's been pretty successful so far.
So Becky's not giving herself the credit she deserves. Becky's an amazing technician. And so what she did before Survey 1 through 3 existed, with digitizing it in a geodatabase feature class and the access database and the integration, that was all manual, and she was still producing GIS layers of the data, but she was doing a lot more work on her end, making it happen. So I think the leaders of her department see a layer, and they used to see a layer, but it's done so much more efficiently now, and she can spend time doing the things she wants to do, which is the analysis piece and expanding this outreach. So hopefully that helps. So she's done stuff to make our program run better, but hopefully the powers that be understand it, and I take every opportunity I can to promote the success of her story here. That's why we're here today.
Yeah, I have gotten feedback from others within Parks and Rec, so outside of NAP, but other folks who work in the parks, that they just think it's super cool, and they're really kind of blown away by the amount of participation we had this year. We've gotten way more data than we have in any other year that I can think of, for sure. And COVID might have had something to do with it, because folks were out looking for stuff to do and ways to contribute. But I like to think that the app, the ease with which you can submit data, had a lot to do with it as well.
Hey, Tony, you have some other questions before that. There's one from Macy Jackson. Do you look through all the photos submitted to confirm observations?
We did in the beginning, but we kind of got off track with that. We are planning to do that. We're planning to look at all the photos. More points, I would say that more often than not, there are not photos associated with the data, so it shouldn't be too onerous to look through everything, but we'll see how it goes, because we're just getting into data analysis for the year right now.
And there's some ways in Pro you can actually select her observations that have photos to kind of run some filters. So hopefully that'll help Becky with that effort. That's a really good question. I see some coming up here.
Yeah, there's another one.
Go ahead.
Do you publish any of this data to a public viewer application or map?
We're planning to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
So the map that, the web map that Becky showed, that's kind of what George, one of the technicians that works for NAP also, that's kind of where he analyzes the data. But it's on our roadmap to kind of have a little more external visualizer of this, with maybe even a dashboard. But really, we got so much data in the last 2 seasons that we're really happy, and so we haven't really done the external visualization quite yet. We're still in the analysis phase. That's a really good question. What else did I miss, Janet?
That's it. You're caught up. Baheshta has a question. I think
Yeah,
I probably see that one.
Thank you, Baheshta. Nice to see you again. She's asking about quick capture. So I learned about quick capture last IMAGIN conference for the first time in Grand Rapids, and so I haven't had the opportunity to really take it home and try it yet. But it's on our list of things to do. I mean, a couple of us have seen that technology, and I think there's some opportunities there. So no, we haven't tried that one yet, but maybe. And oh, this is a good one, Becky. Have we had any volunteers that were resistant to using this new technology?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't recall hearing about anybody who didn't want to use it. We did leave the option open if people still wanted to use the paper forms and send those in, that they could. So we didn't say you must use the app or don't participate in the survey. So we may have had maybe 1 or 2 people who kept sending in paper forms, but I didn't hear any big gripes about it.
And we're just digitizing those using Survey 1 through 3 once they send them in.
Yep.
You know.
And then Tom actually sent one in. Do each of your volunteers have AGO accounts to be able to log in to Survey 1 through 3, or do you open your surveys for everyone? And then how many volunteers were there again? He doesn't.
So I think I know what you're asking, Tom. So So basically, we had it open at one point, and then we realized the training was really essential. So we are kind of building accounts as needed in ARC Online. So my plan in the off years is to transition this over to Portal, because we have a lot more flexibility in Ann Arbor with our account structure to be able to allow our volunteers, if our understanding is if they're part of our Active Directory, which many of our volunteers are, they can be part of our organizational subscription, which is Portal. And so to get around the running out of accounts problem, we're going to move the application to Portal. And so for now, we're kind of doing a lot of administration of moving the volunteers around, but we have a number of them that are kind of earmarked for this NAP program, and that's how we're handling it currently. Different named accounts. So once they get through the training, we activate their name, and then we deactivate the people that aren't doing it. So there is some communication that's needed between Becky and I to make that happen.
Yeah, I would say folks that are like really active and really submitting, you know, more than 1 or 2 observations, we probably have about 20 this year who would be using the app. So folks who are doing other types of surveys and aren't using the app, I'm sure you just were wondering about the app users. So yeah, probably 20.
Tom, hopefully that answers your question. So we're running short on time, and we really thank you for being part of this today. And Janet's going to say some more IMAGIN stuff, but any final thoughts or questions for Becky and I on the Herp survey in Ann Arbor?
I do have one quick thought, Tony. Just for anyone who's thinking about trying to get into Survey 123 and figuring out how to build a survey, it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. When I first looked at the Excel sheet and the structure and how does it work, I watched a couple of how-to videos and was able to figure out 90% of what I wanted to do. So it was easier than I thought. I was surprised.
Hey, Janet.
Hello. Well, thank you so much, Becky and Tony. This was really interesting, really cool stuff. Thank you for being our first presenters in this IMAGIN Webinar Series. I think it went off really well, so thank you very much. Thanks to all of our attendees. Please check out the IMAGIN website for the next couple presentations in the series. If you have any questions, reach out to Becky, Tony, myself, or anyone on the IMAGIN board. And I think that's it. So thank you very much, and thanks for attending.
And see you in 2 weeks, everyone, because this IMAGIN Webinar Series is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about a bunch of the upcoming presentations. There's a ton of stuff I know nothing about, and I can't wait to learn it. So
yeah, it's going to be fun stuff. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Nice seeing you guys again, everyone.
Bye.